All right, hello everyone. I wanted to give you a little instructions, a little video on the pulse rate lab that we will be doing this week. So here's a little intro on it. So we're going to be doing a pulse rate lab. So you're going to obviously have to check your pulse rate. Now we did this in class. I did this with my remote kids also, but I do have a video how to check your pulse rate as well. So if you want to watch that, just it's important that you are able to check your pulse rate correctly for doing this lab. I also posted a link for a timer. Now, you don't have to use two hands. Just keep the timer constantly running. Keep it constantly running. So if you're counting every 15 seconds, just like in your head, tell yourself when you're going to start counting. I'll start counting at 20 and I'll stop counting at 35. So I'll start counting 1, 2. So count your pulse rate for 15 seconds. Just do the math to do 15 seconds ahead. And that's how you're going to check your pulse rate, basically for a minute. So this pulse rate lab, here's the background you guys can read. I'm not going to read the background information for you. But some of the things that you're going to need, you're definitely going to need that stopwatch app, the stopwatch link, which I provided in my post in Google Classroom. And I was telling my students this live, but just as a reminder, it's best that you use the 2 fingers over the little crook of your wrist is the best way to use it, not your thumb. I was told, and I worked at a hospital for years too, when I was in college, your thumb, if you use your thumb, you're going to feel your pulse. So even, I know obviously we're doing ours anyway, so it's not a big deal to do yours, but you should always get used to using your fingers. So when you're checking someone else's pulse rate, you don't just feel your pulse rate. So you're going to check your pulse rate 3 times for 15 seconds, multiply times 4. 15 times 4 gives you 60 seconds, gives you a minute. So we'll see how close you are in these to doing your pulse rate. Should be pretty close to each other. You're doing it 3 times in a row. Some of the things you're going to do is resting pulse rate. Sitting, resting pulse rate. Oh, by the way, the table on this, table 2, you can cross off these columns, average female and average male pulse rate. Sometimes when I do this, we'll have the whole class and we'll see what the average female versus the average male is. We're just going to do this column right here, your pulse rate. So you can cross out these two columns in your data table. So I want you to take your pulse rate resting, staying in attention, holding breath. All right, how long so let's read the instructions here. Standing stiffly for 2 minutes. So after 2 minutes, look at that timer. After 2 minutes, take your pulse rate. I don't want you guys to pass out holding your breath, but you should take a deep breath, exhale part of it, and hold as long as possible. Might be longer for me than it is for you. Might be longer for you than it is for me. Whatever, as long as possible. While it's being held, take your pulse rate. See how that works while you're holding your breath. We're going to skip the paper bag one. You could put a line through the paper bag one. We're going to I don't think we're going to do the paper bag one. So don't worry about the paper bag one. Just because of the COVID thing, we'd have to take our masks off to do this one. So I think we're just going to skip that one this year anyway. Number 7, while seated, take a deep breath for 30 seconds. Deep breath. After the first 15 seconds, see if you can take your pulse rate for the last 15 seconds of deep breaths. If you come lightheaded while taking deep breaths, hold your breath for a few seconds. Determine the pulse rate per minute by, again, multiplying by 4. The most important one we're going to do, in school, I'm having my students walk. I'm not going to tell them to run the stairs. We're going to go down to the first floor, go over to the other side, come up, and we're going to do that probably 3 times to get the heart rate going. If you're doing this at home, you could always do jumping jacks for a minute straight. Make sure you're doing it for a minute straight, real jumping jacks. You want that heart rate to go up. At least a minute. You could do it longer than a minute if you want. I won't even hold you to just a minute. So jumping jacks for a minute. Immediately after exercise, take your pulse for 15 seconds. Then a minute later, 45 seconds. So if you're doing this, let me explain this. So, all right, I just did my jumping jacks. Now I'm going to take my pulse rate. So let's say I started at 35. So take my pulse rate. I'm going to go 35 to 50. That'll be 15 seconds. Pulse rate. I'm counting 15 seconds. Once it gets to 50, it's going to be high because you were just exercising. All right, it's at 50. I'm going to write that number down. Now I'm going to do it again at 35 seconds because that'll be a minute later. The last time I just did it, the first time 0 was 35 seconds. Once it gets to 35 seconds again, I'll take my pulse rate from 35 to 50. That'll be minute 1. Minute 2 will be once it gets to 35 again. Minute 3 is once it gets to 35 again. So you're going to do this. You're going to do this in the data table right here every minute after. So like I said, if the minute after, we have it on the, if I have it on the, so you can even hit clear. As soon as you're done exercising, you could hit start and start. I don't know if you can get your pulse rate that quickly though. That's the problem. So you might want to wait till 10 seconds or something. So once you feel the pulse rate, you like start counting, boom, at 10 seconds. You don't want to wait too long because then you're going to start recovering. And then every minute after, every time it gets to 10 again, then you're going to keep counting. A minute after, 2 minutes after, 3 minutes after, 4 minutes after, 5 minutes after, 6 minutes after. These numbers are important because I want you to figure out your recovery rate. So this last table is where you can do your recovery rate. My resting rate was 60. So I'm going to start my table with 60. And then I went every other one for a minute. So it's spaced out. So skip a space, 1 minute, skip a space, 2 minutes. So you're going to have minutes on the bottom, pulse rate per minute on the side, the vertical axis. Like I said, I'm going to start with 60. If your resting pulse rate, let's say, was 50, then you could start with 50 here. And this would be 60. This would be 70. And you could go all the way to the top. So you got pulse rate, pulse rate. This would be time. Like I have on the other one, I counted time every other one. So it's not all squished together. You should have a recovery rate that, let's say my heart rate goes up to 90. It'll start to go down after 1 minute. Maybe it'll go down after 2 minutes. Then by 3 minutes, then maybe who knows what your recovery rate will be. It'll level, eventually it should level off, is what it should do. So there are conclusion questions you'll have to do, conclusion questions, and then that's pretty much it. So I just wanted to share with you some information on how to do that lab, and good luck. If there's any questions, make sure to email or come to my help class.